What's going on, guys? Tomahawk Warrior here, and today we're bringing you another historic Brawl deck for MTG Arena. Today we're running out Marwyn, the Nurturer. Marwyn is definitely becoming one of my favorite decks to play, both in real life and in Arena. The deck is just fantastic, a lot of draw power. It recovers great if we get board wiped. Um, there's not a lot of things that people can really do to shut this deck down, other than putting out certain cards that will like give my cards minus like one or two, which case the deck cries. But other than those very specific cards, I don't really have any bad matchups in this deck, and I tend to just kind of while out a lot quicker than what I think a lot of people expect. So part of the things that makes this deck so strong is Marwyn herself. So she's a 3 cost 1/1 elf druid. Whenever another elf enters the battlefield under my control, I put a +1/+1 on her, and then I can tap her uh, for green mana equal to her power. So, no surprise, a lot of this deck is comprised of a lot of reasonably priced and or cheap elves, all of which generate mana. So, I'm generating mana while making Marwyn huge, and then I can tap Marwyn just by herself to cast ludicrously big spells. I've gotten basically Ulamog's off of her, Creator Hoof Behemoths, um, Kolga. I mean, it's fantastic. And like I said, even if my board gets wiped, um, I can just play Marwyn again because she's really cheap. Play some small elves and just again just regenerate that kind of advantage. So going over the deck, obviously we have Marwyn. Next we have Allosaurus Shepherd. Um, this is a deck, or this is a card I'd more run in real life Magic than in Arena. However, it's a cheap elf, so it went in the deck. So it's a 1/1. This spell can't be countered. Green spells you control can't be countered until the end of turn. Each elf creature you control has a base power and toughness of 5/5 and becomes a dinosaur in addition to its other creature types. So that's what makes it. That's why it gets the cut into the deck, is because I can, once I generate enough mana, I can make all my elves just incredibly big, 5/5s. Also, green spells that I control can't be countered is kind of nice. I have people try to counter, um, like Creator Hoofs when they come in and stuff. So this card can get a lot of value. However, do not expect it to stay on the field for long because people like countering things a lot. We have Elvish Mystic, Land War Elves, two really cheap mana dorks. I do run Pelt Collector in this deck. Again, cheap. More so though because as I generate mana, I do like to play big creatures. So Pelt Collector will always get that +1/+1 on him, basically after turn 4 going forward. So he himself can get pretty big pretty quick as well. So he does make the cut into the deck as kind of like a early game than you would expect. Kind of threat that I can use to threaten my opponents, get their attention on him, and then use Marwyn's ability to get something bigger. In which case, like crap, I shouldn't have wasted that kill spell on him or Marwyn. Now I've just got this freaking Ulamog that's in my face, and I'm sad. We got one Druid of the Cowl, um, Elfheim Druid, um, again two cheap mana rocks or mana dorks. Sorry, not mana rocks. Elvish Can Caller. So other elves that I control get +1/+1. Her other ability doesn't matter. She's in the deck because she's a 2 cost card that gives all my elves +1/+1. This is one that I do run as many elves that'll give my other elves +1/+1. In real life, I really committed to this kind of style of play, so I have like um, Icon of Ancestry and things like that just to make my elves even more swole. Um, I'm not apologizing for that, but yeah, so you're gonna see a couple of these cards, and again, they're in here mainly because they buff my other elves. So my little 1/1s become 2/2s, 3/3s, 4/4s, and then they're a problem. Visionary, cheap 2 cost card when it enters the battlefield. Draw. Um, you're gonna play a lot of cards, so having draw is always nice. Which is why she's in the deck. Elvish War Master, freaking amazing card. Whenever one or more elves enters the battlefield under your control, create one green elf warrior creature token. You only get one a turn, and then you can pay 7 elves you control get +2/+2 and death touch until the end of turn. Um, this card is just too good not to have. It gives me an additional elf token. I can make my elves bigger with death touch. Fantastic card for 2 cost. We do run an explorer just to help us with our early game mana and draw. Fought a Shaman, ridiculously good card. It's a 2/2 for 2. You can pay green, tap her, discard a card, search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So this is the card that lets us go fetch our late game, board ending cards like Creator Hoof, Ulamog, um, what have you. Mid game, we get like Nyx Bloom, Kolga. Worst case scenario, if we got board wipe, we can go fetch some of our cheap mana dorks to get Marwin big again. It's amazing, amazing card. Try to protect her if you can. Gelta Greeters, Elf Druid, 2 cost for 1/1. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, choose one of these options that hasn't been chosen. Put a +1/+1 on her. Create a tap treasure token. Great, more mana, and then you can gain 2 life. She's a good card, but again, she's in here because she's cheap. Heroic Intervention, you need to run some sort of protection, so here's all my permanents hexproof and indestructible to the end of the turn. We only have one protection card in the deck, mainly because I found that if the board gets wiped, it's gonna get wiped, so just build it again. This is in here for kind of towards the end game where I've got my board in a state I want it, and I'm looking to swing up for games, so I'll hold this card and then use it late game to try to make sure that, my opponent can't reset the game, for the third time. We do run the plant mainly because it's a cheap mana dork. It isn't an elf. If you want to swap it out for a different elf, I wouldn't say no. A lot of the other elves I would put in the deck don't exist in Magic, so that's why the tree gets passed in Arena. Or yeah, one incubation druid because creates mana. You can adapt it to create more mana. Leaf Crown Visionary. Other elves get +1/+1. Whenever you cast an elf spell, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. If you get this card out of late game, pay the cost to draw. If not, just she's another elf for 2. Leaf Gilder, Mana Dork, Leafkin Druid, another non-elf Mana Dork. You are gonna get a lot of cards out, which is why he's in here because you'll get that 2/2 really quick. Llanowar Lumpspeaker, tap, add a mana of any color you want. You can tap him, target land you control becomes a 3/3 green elemental creature with haste until the end of the turn. It's still a land. It's a 2-cost card for an elf that can make my lands, become amazing if they need to be. Do be careful doing that though, because I have had it where I've gotten my lands into my lands have become 3/3s, had a good board, got board wiped, and I've gone down to 0 lands. So do be careful with his ability. Paradise Druid, because why not? Return to Nature. With release of Brothers of War, Return to Nature has become kind of a must-have in the deck. You need some sort of artifact destruction. So it's in here for mainly its artifact destruction. It can destroy an enchantment, which is nice, or it can return. Exile a card from the graveyard, which is nice. My opponent has something that's recurring. I can get rid of it. Good card to have in the deck. Wayfinder, when it's battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of my library, reveal a creature card or land card from among them, put it on top of my library, put the rest in the bottom of my library in a random order. It's a cheap elf, does help me kind of set up my my deck. It's fine, it makes the cut. Woodland Mystic, cheap mana dork. Ball Greed, it's in here for 2 reasons. One, it's a land. The other reason, it's a cheap sorcery to return something from the graveyard to my hand. More often than not, this card just comes in as a land, but however, in real life, I have used this card to get some cheap mana dorks back. And I think one game I actually got Kolga back, which ended up winning me the game. Circle of Dreams, it's a 3-cost Elf Druid. Tap, add green for each creature you control. So again, this with Marwyn, you can kind of see this will get huge real quick. I do run 1 Cultivate just because there are times in the deck where I need additional lands or I need additional mana ramp or mana. So this does help with that. You want to take this card out of the deck, fine. I would recommend putting in the Ape Shaman. Whenever you cast a card, you can destroy artifacts. I would put it in this deck, however, I just don't have the card right now, and all of my other resources are being thrown into other decks, so I don't need that card, so that's why Cultivate's in the deck. However, Cultivate does do good stuff for me, so I am fine leaving it in the deck. Don't take that as like this is a bad card in any way, shape, or form. Elvish Archdruid, other elves get +1/+1. I can tap, add green for each elf I control. So again, a lot of mana ramp. Frailage, Sky Shroud, Partisan. This card is fucking amazing for a 3 cost. 4 loyalty Planeswalker. That's already amazing. +1 is untap one target elf. That elf and a random elf creature card in your hand permanently get +1/+1. That second part doesn't matter. Just untap one elf. You tap Marwyn for 7 mana. Untap her, tap her again from 7 mana. That's broken. Her -1, his -1 is seek an elf card. That is amazing. Go fetch another elf. And then you can do -6, conjure a card named Regal Force onto the battlefield. Regal Force, it's a 5/5. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card for each green creature you control. I haven't really used the -6. Normally it's just like I'm untapping Marwyn to generate more mana, which is going to allow me to play more things, which is going to allow Marwyn to get bigger. And then the -1 to go seek an elf card. This card is broken. There's no reason that it should be this cheap for a card that good. Perfect. It's a 2/2 elf. Other elves I control get +1/+1. Like I said, there were quite a few elves that were going to make my other elves bigger. This is, I think, the last one. I can also pay green, tap, create a a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. Land War Tribe. It's an elf that taps for 3. Great. Prima Renegade. This is the card that I've seen a lot of elf decks run as their commander. When it's the battlefield, put +1/+1 counter on each of 2 target creatures. Each creature you control with a counter on it has tap, add a green. Reason I don't run this as my commander is because I think Marwyn's just infinitely better. However, I have seen people, use that +1/+1 to try to, swing out quicker. So if you want to play more aggressive, he might be a bit better of a commander, but in my mind, Marwyn's just infinitely better. However, he does go in the deck because this will make those other elves that were either buffing my elves or weren't, or some other cards like Beast Whisperer or what's his name? Pel Collector. They can now tap for mana, so they become just infinitely better as if they weren't doing something already. Yeah, great card. Heart of the Wilds. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, its controller may draw a card if its power is greater than each other creature's power. Cheap elf, 2/3. I've gotten some good use off of her draw to get out early big cards. Do be a little bit careful because it can kind of help your opponent, but it's a great card. Also, you can pay green, tap, add X mana in any combination of colors, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So normally I'm just tapping her as soon as I can to generate more mana. Valaris Silvermoon Ranger. Again, it's another card I've seen people run as their commander. However, if they are doing that, I've seen them commit more to the dungeon style. Don't really need that, but whenever you cast a creature or planeswalker spell, you venture into the dungeon. Whenever you complete a dungeon, create a 2/2 green wolf token. Not a bad card. However, I don't really think that the dungeon mechanics are that great, so I've steered away from that. However, he's a good elf, and more importantly, he does have reach on a 3/3. The ongoing weakness to elf decks is their lack of defense against flying. So having at least one card in the deck with reach can be helpful. However, normally if people are getting to that point, we pretty much just lost. So stop them if you can. Yovor, yeah, he comes into he's a 3 cost for 0/0. He comes into the battlefield with 4+1/+1 counters, so he's essentially a 4/4 for a 3 cost. Whenever another green creature enters the battlefield under your control, you might put a +1/+1 on Yorvo. Then if that creature's power is greater than him, you put another +1/+1. So like you can get this card out early. He gets really big really quick. Later game, you're gonna struggle trying to get him big, but he's a cheap enough creature, and I think he's really good. Canopy Tactician. Other elves you control get +1/+1. You can tap. Adds 3 green. It's a 4 cost card, so it's a little pricey. However, it's still cheap enough that I can justify it being in the deck. Beast Whisperer, whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. Like I said, you want a lot of draw because as I've shown so far in this deck, all these cards are cheap. So you're gonna have no hand really quickly, so you need to just constantly replace it, which does tie into our next card, Harmonize. It's a 4 cost sorcery, draw 3 cards. You need to keep cards in your hands, so this helps quite a bit, these two. Leyline of Abundance. It's a 4-cost enchantment. It's in your opening hand. You begin the game with it. On the battlefield, whenever you tap a creature for mana, add an additional forest. Then you can pay 8, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So early game, you're going to be just using this so that when your elves tap, they tap for an additional mana. And then late game, you're going to be putting mana from whatever sources you can into this card to make all your other creatures bigger. Migration Path. In for 2 reasons. One, because it allows me to search my library for 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped. Key thing is they go into the battlefield, not your hand, which a lot of cards do. And then it's cycling for 2, so I can just ditch it and draw. So it has 2 niches there. It's either fetches me mana or it allows me to draw a card for 2. Oracle of Moldiah. This card's fucking fantastic. It's 4 cost for a 2/2. You may play additional land each of your turns. You may play with the top card of your library revealed, and you may play lands from the top of your library. Fantastic. Defiler of Vigor. This card is secretly becoming one of the strongest cards in the deck. It's a 5 cost for a Phyrexian Worm, who's a 6/6 trample. As an additional cost to cast green permanent spells, you may pay 2 life. Those spells cost green less to cast if you paid life this way. This effect reduces only the amount of green mana you pay, so you can't just pay life to pay out big cards. And then whenever you cast a green permanent spell, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So this combined with all those other elves giving +1/+1s will actually allow the elves that I have on my board to get huge really quick, which is awesome because Marwyn's already going to be big. This is a fantastic card. Pay the life when you can, because you want to keep as much forest open as possible. Obviously, we got a run Gigantosaurus, 10/10 dinosaur for 5. God Eternal Ranas, I think is how you pronounce it. 5 cost for 5/5 with Death Touch. When enters the battlefield, double the power of each other creature you control until the end of turn. Those creatures gain vigilance until the end of turn. When it dies or is put into exile from the graveyard, I put this card 3rd from the top of my library. So he's in here as kind of like a finisher. It does a similar thing to Crater Hoof and Finale of Devastation, where when it enters the battlefield, all my creatures double their attack. Is worse than both those cards, but I found him to be good enough that he's in the deck. In real life, I do run a couple different cards. Beastmaster's Ascension is one of them, and I forget the other one, but it does a similar thing. It's on an enchantment. However, I think it's the same cost. I don't remember. But it does the same thing where it doubles their power during the combat step. So it's a good card. If you want to replace it with either one of those, or if you want to play something different, it's fine. It won't hurt the deck. Iron Scale Hydra. It's a 5 cost for a 5/5 Hydra. If creature would deal combat damage to Iron Scale Hydra, prevent that damage, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So it acts as a mini wall. It can get big, and yeah, good card. Nissy Who Shakes the World. I don't know if I can play a green deck or a deck with green in it that doesn't include Nissa, because I think this card's amazing. She makes my my lands become 3/3 vigilance creatures. Whenever I tap a forest for mana, I generate additional green, and then I get an emblem where lands I control have indestructible. I search my library for any number of forest cards, put them on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. So this is basically in here to just completely thin out the deck if I can get her to +8. If not, it gives me some lands to, use as blockers to attack with whatever. She's normally never getting that emblem, but if she does, great. She's just in here to, again, generate me early game mana, because I can cast her usually by turn 3, 4. And yeah, from there, she just helps with the mana. Good card. Return of the Wild Speaker. Like I said, drawing cards is amazing. So this is a 5 cost instant. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creature cards I control. Or I can give non-human creatures +3/+3 to the end of turn. So it can either end as a finisher card. More than likely, though, I'm playing this mid game to draw cards equal to, Ulamog's power or something. Vivian Monsters Advocate, like I said, reach is a issue for elves. This is something that I do use to help with it. So she's a 5 cost Planeswalker for 3 loyalty. I can plus her up, create a 3/3 beats token with my choice of either Vigilant, Reach, or Trample. It's Reach. And then I can pay minus her down to when I cast my next creature spell this turn, search with my library for a creature card with lesser mana value, put into the battlefield, and shuffle. So, early game, make things that block flyers. Later game, whenever I cast something big, make sure I use her first. And then or sorry, use her ability, cast something big, which allows me to get something slightly smaller but still big. Great card. Aggressive Mammoth. I've gone over this card in I think every video so far that's had green in it. It gives all of my other creatures I control trample. So all my 5/5 elves, get trample. Kolga the Titanape. This card is just so good. It's a 6 cost for a 7/6. When it enters the battlefield, fights one target creature I don't control. Whenever it attacks, destroy target artifact or enchantment defending player controls. And then the other ability doesn't matter. So cast it, kill my opponent's thing that is scary, and then when it swings, it's dealing with their artifacts. Ancient Bronze Dragon. I don't know if I need to say really much about this card. This card's broken. It's a 7 cost for a 7/7 with flying. Whenever it deals damage to a player, roll a d20. When I do, put X +1/+1 counters on 2 target creatures where X is the result of the damage. So this makes my elves big. One thing I would say, guys, if you want to make this deck a bit better, either drop this card or one of the Planeswalkers and put in old Gnawbone, who is another dragon. Whenever you deal damage, he creates treasure tokens. I think, or he distributes +1/+1s. No, I think it's treasure tokens. Either way, put them in the deck. Good card to have if you don't want the Planeswalkers. Nyxbloom Ancient. It's a 5/5 with trample for 7. Whenever I tap a permanent for mana, it produces 3 times as much mana instead. So yeah, like I said, late game card, use it with ley lines. You're going to be generating ludicrous amounts of mana to get all your elves and creatures with +1/+1s. Thorn Mammoth, it's another card like Kolga. When it enters the battlefield or another creature enters the battlefield under control, it fights target creature you don't control. Is a little weaker, but it does work whenever anything else comes into the battlefield. So use them to take out whatever your opponent's using to generate either mana with or advantage with. Titan of Industries, it is a 7 cost for 7/7. When it enters the battlefield, I can either destroy a target enchantment, gain 5 life, create a 4/4 green rhino creature, or put a shield counter on creature I control. I actually get to choose 2 of those. So what you're doing is you're bringing them in, destroy a target artifact or enchantment, and then give Marwyn a shield counter. Create a Hoof Behemoth because it's a game ender. 5/5 with haste. When it enters battlefield, target creatures you control gain trample and +X/+X until the end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. Great card. End-Race Forerunners, slightly worse Crater Hoof. When it enters the battlefield, creatures you control get +2/+2 in Vigilance, trample to the end of turn. It is an 8 cost for a 7/7 with Vigilance, trample, and haste. So again, you're using that in Crater Hoof to just kind of end the game with. The Great Henge, it's an artifact for 9. The spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. This card you're going to be paying for 2 at max normally. Tap it, generate 2 green mana, gain 2 life whenever non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and draw. So, generates mana, gives life, and allows me to put tokens and draw. Good card. The Thrascute, it's a dinosaur. It has haste and ward for 10, as long as it was cast, which I am going to do. When it attacks, it fights target creature defending player control. So again, it helps me to deal with their problematic things. Titanothrax, it's an 11/11 with trample. Normally I'm just gonna cycle it for 2, and when I cycle it, I do get a trample counter or target creature I control. So this is literally giving me a trample counter on something like Ulamog or like Impervious Great Worm. So mainly you're gonna cycle this. If you need to play it, go ahead. Impervious Great Worm, it's a 16/16 indestructible worm. Great card. Ulamog, because why would you not play Ulamog? When you cast it, exile 2 permanents, just get rid of 2 of their lands, it usually wins you the game. It's indestructible, and then when it attacks, defending player exiles the top 20 cards of their library. Fantastic. Galtia of the Primal Hunger. It's a 12 cost Elder Dinosaur for 12. It's a 12 cost Elder Dinosaur. Sorry. It costs XX to cast, where X is the total power among creatures you control. So again, you're going to be casting it for something like 2. It does have inbuilt trample, so it's a fantastic card. I do put Earthquaker Dragon in the deck because, you know, a 10/10 flying dragon with trample, it's amazing. You can sacrifice a land as well as paying 3. Return from your graveyard to your hand so you can play it again if you need to. And then, you know, obviously we have our Finale of Devastation. Search my library or graveyard for creature card with mana value X or less put onto the battlefield. If you do search your library, shuffle. If X is 10 or more creatures you control, gain +10/+10 and gain haste until the end of the turn. So like I said, you're going to generate enough mana quickly enough that you can play this card and just swing out with a bunch of elves that are 10/10s and end the game. And then finally, we'll go over our lands. We got 1 Castle of Garenberg, Thankful Thicket, and then 34 Forest. So yeah, guys, elves. I have 49 creatures in the deck and 36 lands, 3 planeswalkers, 2 enchantments, 1 artifact, 6 sorceries, 3 instants. This deck is a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys enjoy the videos that I will show right after this, and you'll see how the deck works. It's pretty straightforward, just generate mana and swing. But yeah, you'll see what I mean by using that ward counter effectively, and then the power of the Elven Planeswalker. So hopefully you guys enjoy. And there you have it, guys. That's my Marwin the Nurturer Elf Tribal deck. We're making elves great again. No, in all seriousness, Marwin is just such a great commander. She generates so much advantage off of her ability to tap for mana, getting such advantage off of stuff like Kolga, Titan of Industry, destroy artifacts, that shield counter, like I said, when it saves Marwin, and she's still able to tap for so much mana, the deck just recovers so quick. So I love her, love the deck. Hopefully you guys love her too, and I will catch you on the next one, guys. Peace. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.